Like all regular people I grew up with in the heartland, JD studied at Yale, had his career funded by Silicon Valley billionaires, and then wrote a bestseller trashing that community. Come on! That's not what middle America is. And I gotta tell you, I can't wait to debate the guy. That is, if he's willing to get off the couch and show up. So, see what I did there? Look. I got to tell you, pointing out just an observation of mine that I made. I just have to say it. You know it, you feel it. These guys are creepy and yes, just weird as hell. That's what you see. That's what you see.
That is quite a bold statement coming from a guy who signed laws requiring tampons in boys' bathroom, wants to put corn in schools, and allows kids to get their body parts chopped off. But hey, to each his own. Also, getting into Yale Law School as a white guy without any sort of connections from undergrad at Ohio State University is not an easy feat. But I guess to be extraordinarily smart and talented is just not good enough these days. Anyway, welcome back. It's your man Wise, and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz has officially been picked as Kamala's running mate. And he took some time during his first rally appearance alongside Harris to attack JD Vance for being weird. I'm telling you guys, weird is becoming their new version of deplorables. And I don't know about you, but I think it's time they come up with some new insults. But that's besides the point. I'm not sure how this is all going to play out for them though. Walz has touted his military career, but let's keep it a buck about what actually happened. Walz left the National Guard right before his unit deployed to Iraq. It's not exactly a shining example of military leadership. It's pretty unusual for a newly minted command sergeant major to leave the military right before deployment. This guy was supposed to lead, and instead, he bailed. Tim Walz has been out there touting his military service record, but let's get into the facts. His service record shows that Walz abandoned his fellow comrades. Even the Minnesota National Guard leaders published a letter exposing him for stolen valor and being a coward. They called him out for lying about his rank and quitting when he heard his unit was going to mobilize to Iraq. Check this out.
Back again to wage a public war of words against Tim Walz.
He abandoned us. I mean, what the hell kind of leader does that? I mean, he just, as soon as the shots were fired in Iraq, he turned and ran the other way and hung his hat up and quit.
We'll get to Barron's new message for voters in a moment. But this all starts years earlier when Barron says Walz's misleading statements about his military service first led him to come forward in the fall of 2018.
So you try to get this message out, but Minnesota's largest newspaper checks it out, says it's 100% true, but yet refuses to print.
When I hung the phone up, I said, what the hell is this, North Korea?
Back in 2005, a warning order went out to the 1st Battalion, 125th Field Artillery to mobilize for a mission to Iraq. At the time, Walz served as the unit's highest non-commissioned officer, but months later, Walz would retire from the Guard, avoid the deployment, and run for Congress. Tom Behrens was next in line for the position and was asked to take his place.
I was like, well, for Pete's sake, if this guy quit, and if I say I'm not going to do it, I mean, what the hell kind of leadership is that? If a company would say that we're going to deploy to Iraq or somewhere and you're going to be gone for whatever amount of time, and then a foreman just says, no, I'm not going. I mean, what does that say to the 500 people that work in that factory?
Behrens would go on to serve in Iraq on a nearly 2-year deployment as a command sergeant major. All while Walz began using that title as a congressman. Behrens says he first contacted Walz with his concerns, sending these letters to Washington. They all went unanswered.
But then we fast forward to the election in 2018 in Minnesota, and you try at that time to get people's attention with this story and also with what seems to be a very misleading statement that he continued to make about his service.
It kind of just sat there. When he was a congressman, he bragged that he was a retired command sergeant major. I'm the highest ranking person ever in the House, and all this lie that he was telling. The state of Minnesota came out after 2018, after this was exposed, and they said, well, he can say that he served as a command sergeant major, but he can't say he's a retired one because he's not.
And that's what he was saying.
And he was saying that, and there was lots of lots of cards coming in the mail, for him to be elected. They said right on there he's a retired command sergeant major, just tooting his own horn, just hanging on the coattails of people that actually are command sergeant majors that went through all the process and put all the time in.
Wow. It seems like the bigger liar you are, the higher you make it up the ranks in the Democratic Party. Now, contrast that to J.D. Vance. Vance, 39, is the first post 9/11 veteran to find a spot on a major party ticket and the first veteran on a major party ticket since John McCain in 2008. J.D. Vance didn't just talk the talk, he walked the walk. He was deployed to Iraq, served his country honorably, and has been a strong advocate for veterans ever since. Walz abandoned his comrades at a critical time, while Vance stepped up and served in one of the most dangerous conflicts in our generation. I cannot wait for this debate. It's going to be epic.
This is a guy who's proposed shipping more manufacturing jobs to China, who wants to make the American people more reliant on garbage energy instead of good American energy, and has proposed defunding the police just as Kamala Harris does. I think it's interesting, actually. They make an interesting tag team because, of course, Tim Walz allowed rioters to burn down Minneapolis in the summer of 2020, and then the few who got caught, Kamala Harris helped bail them out of jail. So it is more instructive for what it says about Kamala Harris, that she doesn't care about the border, she doesn't care about crime, she doesn't care about American energy, and most importantly, she doesn't care about the Americans who have been made to suffer under those policies.
It's a solid attack strategy. This kind of criticism highlights serious issues within track records and raises significant concerns about their approach to law and order. This is what we need more of. Attack them on their radical policies, which no one wants apart from the small radical minority. Under Walz's leadership, Minnesota has seen an increase in crime, a failing education system, and a complete disregard for parental rights. He's turned Minnesota into a testing ground for some of the most extreme elements of the left's agenda. Minnesota right now has the second highest tax rate, only to California. Go figure. Walz has allowed the state to burn quite literally. During the 2020 riots that ravaged Minneapolis, instead of restoring order and protecting citizens, he pandered to the mob. I don't know if you guys seen the video, but his wife said she let the windows up so she could smell the tires burning and basically just smell the city burning down.
I could smell the burning tires. And that was a very real thing. And I kept the windows open for as long as I could because I felt like that was such a touchstone of what was happening.
These people are sick, and this is who these people are. His record speaks for itself. Giving driver's license to illegal immigrants so that they can vote, squandering a $19 billion budget surplus by going on a spending spree with Minnesota's taxpayer money that increased spending by nearly 50%, to then raise taxes by $10 billion. The list goes on and on with this guy. And this brings me to the same question I had when the news first broke. Why did she pick this guy? This is such a radical left ticket. Have we seen a ticket more radical than these two? This is the ultimate commie ticket. I'm not sure what the thought process was here, but I'm willing to bet she was banking on two things, which first, Walz looks like a salt-of-the-earth Midwestern dad rather than a political progressive. And second, that she can count on the fake news media to hide from voters the fact that Walz is actually a radical progressive with the record to prove it. I'm not sure who they're trying to win over with this ticket, but it's insane that they didn't choose the more moderate governor from Pennsylvania with an approval rating of over 60% in the swing state, who would have been a much better choice for VP, according to, well, almost everyone. But he didn't get the nod because I'm guessing he was a Jew, and you have a lot of people that are far left radicals that did not want this guy to get the nod as VP.
You think it was a little risky, though, Van, that she didn't go with Shapiro to kind of lock down Pennsylvania? I mean, yes, David Challenger was saying earlier, just because you pick him as your running mate doesn't mean you automatically win Pennsylvania. But I got to think it would have helped just a little bit.
Hey, listen, the conservatives, the right wing, the Republicans, they were chewing their fingernails down to the knuckle because they were afraid of a Josh Shapiro. They were afraid of a Mark Kelly. They're not as afraid of this new governor because they think they can define him. So here's the challenge you've got in this party. And people don't want to talk about it. We got to talk about it. On the one hand, you have a lot of young people who are concerned about Gaza. You have a lot of Muslims and Arabs and others. They have not felt seen by the Biden administration. You start hearing that genocide joke. That was building. And so those folks needed to have a candidate that they could feel comfortable with. This helps them in that regard. But you also have anti-Semitism that has gotten marbled into this party. You can be for the Palestinians without being an anti-Jewish bigot, but there are some anti-Jewish bigots out there. And there's some disquiet now, and there has to be. How much of what just happened is caving into some of these darker parts in the party? So that's going to have to get worked out. It's going to have to get talked through.
All right, now, Mr. Van Jones, let me take a stab at your question by, making an educated guess based on how far left the party has gone and say that most of what just happened is caving to the pro-Hamas terrorist wing of the party, which is, at this point, is pretty much the majority of the Democratic Party. Imagine how far to the left the Dems have gone when Van Jones sounds moderate. Man, that's crazy. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro was on the short list of VP, and many, including myself, really thought he'd be the eventual pick. But then some 50 progressive leaders penned a tirade demanding Harris choose someone other than him, which was odd because all the people on Harris's short list were essentially pro-Israel. Granted, to varying degrees, but still pro-Israel. Only one of the people on the short list, between Walz and Arizona U.S. Senator Mark Kelly, Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear, and Josh Shapiro, only one had a single particular problem, and that was Shapiro, who is Jewish. It's kind of hilarious if you think about it for a second, how far the left made it basically impossible for Kamala to pick the candidate who had the best chance of helping her win. So she didn't go with someone who'd actually pose a threat to Trump in November, and instead she chose the reliably progressive, lockstep Democrat whose biggest splash on the American scene to date was the day he hunkered himself and his city down while violent mobs burned and looted Minneapolis to the ground. Tim Walz actually froze while Minneapolis burned. He's got this likable substitute teacher shtick going on, but I think this also exposes a fatal flaw, which is that he needs to be reminded constantly that he can't stand up to the mob. He's not going to do anything about it because that's what happened in Minneapolis 2020. And when he chickened out of Iraq, but at the same time, Harris's choice of Walz has also shown us that the radicals on the left, for all their flaws, are a force that can't be ignored. These two people, Kamala and Tim Walz, don't actually represent anything other than the cult. And the scary thing is that you've got these people that they know they're lying, that they're playing by a script intentionally to play people. They don't represent any values. They just represent this narrative. And there are tons of people who just follow it for whatever reason. So with Tim Walz, when he says this or says that, you just know that he's for whatever the machine is telling him to be for. It's the same with all of them. The only thing that matters is identity politics, which is probably why there is no policy platform on Kamala's campaign website. Zero policy on the site, because this is what happens when you pander to the radical elements of your party so long that it becomes your entire party. Walz is used to getting away with lying to the media about his record, but now that he's on the national stage, it'll be hard to get away with that. The Democrats have gone full tilt to the left, catering to communists, socialists, Marxists, and the radicals who are determined to reshape America in their image. And look where it's gotten us thus far. What we're seeing with the Harris and Walz tickets is a culmination of years of creeping in radicalism within the Democratic Party. They've gone so far that they can't even see the center anymore. They're pushing an agenda that's anti-family, anti-freedom, anti-American, and we have to push back. Because if Kamala and Walt spend the next 90 days defending their record on the economy, on the border, and on the wars overseas, they're going to have an extremely hard time. Let me know what you guys think. Like, share, subscribe to the channel. Drop me a comment down below. I appreciate all the love and support. Consider joining the ARP family. It supports me, the team, the channel. It gives us the ability to do what we do on a day-to-day basis. Keep God first in your life. Stay prayed up. And I'm going to catch up with you all next time. Peace.